Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, going through my top 5 wide receivers that are still available in the transfer portal. A couple of different conversations that I want to have. One, go through my favorite wide receivers, kind of evaluate what they bring to the table. But I think more importantly, you look at all these teams that are looking for wide receivers. A lot of these programs are looking for a particular mold of wide receivers. So I want to talk about these wide receivers, but then to have the conversation of what offenses might they fit the best heading into 2024. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. It has been really a blast for me the last week and a half, talking the transfer portal, talking about the different commitments, the amount of support you guys continue to show to the fellas. It means the world. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, would love to hear some other wide receivers that I might be sleeping on that you guys have in the comments section. Fired up to get into this one. And without further ado, let's talk about my favorite wide receiver. And I mean, it shouldn't come as a surprise for a lot of you guys who've been listening for the last week and a half. Keandre Lambert from Penn State. And I think this is a guy that probably is going to the NFL, getting drafted in the NFL in a couple of days, had he not played in the Penn State offense. You look at Keandre Lambert, and my favorite attribute that he brings to the table is, he's just a separator. And that's something that it's not necessarily flashy to have that conversation about wide receivers. You like to talk about the vertical speed or the big frames. Keandre Lambert-Smith's not the biggest. He's not the fastest, but his route running ability, his ability to create separation is at such a high level. And this is a guy that, again, you look at him going to the NFL, probably would be an 1,000-yard receiver at a lot of other Power 5 programs, but that Penn State offense didn't really allow him to kind of show what he was able to do. Now, you talk about some really good fits for Keandre Lambert-Smith. Quite frankly, I think both programs that are pushing for him hard, Auburn and Texas A&M, two really good fits. I'm going to go with Auburn. You look at Keandre Lambert-Smith, what he brings to the table, I feel like he fits like a glove in that Auburn wide receiver room where you have guys like Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson coming in the summer. You have some really, for lack of better terms, freakishly good boundary wide receivers that can work vertically down the field. What I think might be missing in that Auburn wide receiver room is, a veteran, polished wide receiver that can be more of your possession wide receiver, that you can move all around the offense. This is a guy that 34% of his snaps coming from the slot, the other 70 coming from the boundary. He moves all over the field. He's a veteran wide receiver that's produced at a high level, at the Power 5 level. I think Auburn's probably missing that type of wide receiver, and I think Keandre Lambert-Smith comes into that Auburn offense and really checks that box for this Auburn wide receiver room. I think that position fit, or that program fit, makes a lot of sense for me. Next one I want to go to, and I went back and forth on Elijah Badger and Sam Brown, who we're going to talk about at number 3. I ended up going with Elijah Badger, and the reason is he's so elite after the catch, and that is a trait specifically at the college football level that I absolutely covet. You look at most Power 5 defenses, what do they struggle with the most? It's tackling in space. And if you have a wide receiver that really contests those defensive backs and secondaries in terms of what they can do and can they make tackles in space, I think that's absolutely massive. And I look at a guy in Elijah Badger and say, all right, he caught for 713 yards last year. Over 540 of those yards came after the catch. He forced 26 missed tackles forced. That is running back numbers from a guy at a wide receiver position in Elijah Badger. And a very similar conversation with Keandre Lambert-Smith, extremely productive in a brutal offense. These are two guys that I think are bona fide 1,000-yard receivers that were just kind of in these offenses that really couldn't push the ball down the field. I am a big fan of Elijah Badger. And in terms of fits, just took a visit to Washington. I like that fit a lot. You look at Jedd Fisch, what he wants to do on the offensive side of the football, get the ball out quickly, in space, and to their wide receivers, let them work after the catch. I don't know if there's a better wide receiver in the portal to run that Jedd Fisch offense than a guy like Elijah Badger. Big fan of him. Think Washington would be a good fit. And a lot of offenses would be a good – every offense wants a wide receiver that can get it done after the catch. So Elijah Badger makes a lot of sense for Washington, a lot of other programs. Now, you look at Sam Brown. Sam Brown, you can't argue with the production at the Power 5 level, right? You have an opportunity to bring in a 800-plus yard receiver. That makes sense. 800 yards plus in 2023. Extremely productive in the Big 12 last year. From a physical trait standpoint, checks a lot of those boxes you want. 6'2", 200 pounds, ran a 4.46 coming out of high school. Sam Brown, in my mind, is a box checker and a guy that offers a program to get a proven producer in the wide receiver room. He's going to take a visit to Miami over the weekend. That one would make a lot of sense. And for Miami fans, we've had that conversation where what kind of wide receiver should Miami be going after, particularly a boundary wide receiver with a big frame that's been productive at the Power 5 level. Sam Brown checks all of those boxes. So to me, that makes a lot of sense. Cam Ward is very close with a guy like Sam Brown. I think that one makes a lot of sense. Would love to see that happen. Sam Brown, my number 3 wide receiver, available in the portal. Going to number 4, and probably my, my favorite kind of my guy in this list, Justice Ross Simmons. Now, yes, he is from Rochester, New York, my hometown. That makes him a little attractive. But more importantly, Justice Ross Simmons, in my mind, criminally underrated coming out of high school. And he's been extremely productive the moment he stepped on a college football field. Back-to-back years of over 500 yards at Colorado State during his first 2 years of college football. You start looking at the athletic profile and say 6'3", 200-plus pounds, basketball background, productive at the high school ranks, productive during his first 2 years at the Group of 5 level. I look at Justice Ross Simmons and say, why weren't more Power 5 programs in on this kid coming out of high school? He goes to Colorado State. The ball skills are insane. It is not surprising to hear that he is a very good basketball player at the high school rank, because when that football is in the air, knows how to use that frame, knows how to go up and make plays. That is a trait that a lot of Power 5 programs are looking for at that wide receiver position. Now, in terms of fits for Justice Ross Simmons, he's a playmaker. We've said the Florida Gators, they have Eugene Wilson, kind of your yards after the catch guy. They probably don't have a playmaker that can work vertically down the field. Justice Ross Simmons, I believe, going to take a visit to Florida this weekend. That fit makes a lot of sense. And you talk about guys that, what does Florida need? They want a playmaker that can make things happen down the field. I look at Justice Ross Simmons and say, big body, big frame, former basketball background. He could be that wide receiver that can work vertically down the field, make those kind of plays. It doesn't take you that long to be in on Justice Ross Simmons. We're starting to have this conversation a lot, but I mean, at the end of the day, college football, the sport of football, is just having guys that are big, fast, athletic. Justice Ross Simmons is big, fast, athletic. You want to bet on this kid in terms of the athletic traits that he brings to the table. Last one I want to talk about, and kind of a slept-on prospect I don't think really many Power 5 programs are going after. I think he has offers from Arkansas, Oklahoma State. Jacoby Jones, coming from Ohio. Now, this is a guy that went the JUCO route, went to Ohio. The last 2 years was extremely productive in 2022. Went down with an injury in 2023, only played in 3 games. 6'2", 230 pounds. You take a look at this kid and say, he is about as physically imposing as it gets as a wide receiver. Almost looks like he could play that tight end role. You know he can get it done blocking on the perimeter. Big body with big-time ball skills. That's another guy that you kind of like Justice Ross Simmons. You just take a look at some of the highlights and say, yeah, we'd probably want to bet on that kind of guy with the size, with the speed, with the functional athleticism that he brings to the table. Again, kind of getting slept on because he missed most of the 2023 season with an injury. But you go back to the 2022 year and say, this kid can seriously play at a high level. Big fan of a guy in Jacoby Jones. And there's a few other wide receivers that I wanted to talk about, but these are my top 5. I like the fits for the programs as well. Fit for Jacoby Jones. Michigan would be a phenomenal fit. I know I'm a Michigan guy. Michigan needs a wide receiver that kind of resembles this, a guy that can work vertically down the field, thrive in those contested catch situations. I don't know if Michigan will pull the trigger on him, but I think a Power 5 program that wants a big physical receiver that can play on the boundary, Jacoby Jones certainly could be that guy. That'll wrap it up for our top 5 wide receivers. We'll continue to work through the position ranks. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.